Jaja Binks. You are listening to Behind the Lens.
And yes, indeed, you are listening to Behind the Lens. Welcome back for yet another week of, well, I don't know what we call this week because this is one really incredible week of guests. Again, welcome. This is Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Elias, film critic, creator, and host of Behind the Lens. You can read my movie reviews and interviews in print and online, including behindthelensonline.net, 24/7 in the U.S. and abroad. But every Monday, you can find me right here on adrenalineradio.com, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And as I just alluded to, we have I think, what may prove to be one of the best shows ever, certainly one of the most exciting guests ever. We're going to be talking today about a new documentary that is coming out. It's part of the Fathom event series. Many of you, a lot of the classic film fans are well familiar with the Fathom event series and their partnership with TCM and, bringing the beautiful classic movies back to the big screen for one night only. Well, Fathom is now doing another one night only for all you music fans out there with Hired Gun, Out of the Shadows into the Spotlight, about all those unsung heroes, the hired guns, the drummers, the guitarists of rock music. We have today the director of Hired Gun, FRAN STRINE, is with us. And at the midway point in the show, I know, let the screaming commence. Phil X, lead guitarist for Bon Jovi, will be calling in live. So, sit back, relax, and we're going to talk a whole lot of music today. But, first, I've got to talk about Hired Gun in general. Okay, what is Brian doing in there? Brian is not paying attention.
I'm on the Twitterverse.
That is called, in The Wizard of Oz, ignore the man behind the glass.
Yeah, please do. I'd rather be unknown.
No, your mistakes will be brought to the forefront. You cannot hide.
How you doing?
Be glad there's a glass wall separating us right now.
Sweet. Okay, so I'm excited for today's show.
I know you are.
I am in the documentary that you're talking about. I love all of those like unsung heroes of music things that tracks that you've heard over the years. And then we got Phil X calling in.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating about the doc is, Jason Hook is one of the producers on it. He is also very prominently featured in interviews. Jason has played with everyone from Mandy Moore and Hilary Duff to Alice Cooper, and now he heads up Five Finger Death Punch, vocals and guitarist. But the way that Fran has constructed this documentary, I can't recommend it highly enough. We learned so much about the individual stories of some of the true legends whose guitar licks whose drum riffs but and faces you may know, but names you don't. Some of the talent that is in this documentary. Liberty DeVitto, Billy Joel's drummer for 30 years. He also played with Carly Simon, Phoebe Snow, Karen Carpenter, Stevie Nicks, Rick Wakeman, Bob James, and Meatloaf. Ray Parker Jr. Fascinating segment with Ray Parker Jr. talking about the Ghostbusters. And Ray Parker Jr. started as a studio musician, as a session guy, and then went on to play with the likes of Tina Turner, Diana Ross, Herbie Hancock, also the Carpenters, Rufus and Chaka Khan, Bill Withers, Boz Scaggs, David Foster, Rudy Sarzo. One of the most fascinating stories that you'll hear and see in the documentary, with Ozzy Osbourne, Quiet Riot, and Whitesnake. Jason Newsted. He was with Metallica and then with Ozzy Osbourne. Glen Sobel. Played with Alice Cooper, Motley Crue, Hollywood Vampires, which also has Alice Cooper, Johnny Depp, and a few other people in it. And Richie Sambora, Eva Gardner. An amazing, amazing bassist. Plays with Pink, Cher, Moby. Of course, Phil X, who is currently, he is the lead guitarist for Bon Jovi now. He previously played with Tommy Lee. He's played with Avril Lavigne, Kelly Clarkson, Alice Cooper and Rob Zombie. There's something about going from Kelly Clarkson to Bon Jovi that I find, and Rob Zombie, that I find really an interesting trajectory. And we've got Jay Graydon, who is known for his work with Steely Dan, Barbra Streisand, Dolly Parton, Diana Ross. It's just, it goes on and on. Absolutely. I mean, talent like you haven't seen in one place before. And, of course, one of my favorites, Nita Strauss, who is currently a guitarist with Alice Cooper. You will find absolutely insightful. It's fun. It's entertaining. And we've actually got some jam sessions going on with songs written just for these hired guns by the Crystal Method. And we actually get to see all of them come together and play together. But when Fran calls in, we're gonna go in deep on this and talk about this amazing documentary. But before he calls in a few minutes, Brian, just curious, because you love music.
I do.
You do. Now, were you familiar with any of these artists that I just rattled off?
Yeah, as you were saying them, you said Hollywood Vampires, and I was like, oh, Johnny Depp. And
Yeah.
then I was like, oh, Johnny Depp's played with Conan. Oh, Conan's played with, like, Tenacious D, who's played with Jack
Yeah,
Black.
and Glen Sobel is the connection there between Alice and Johnny and Richie Sambora and that whole group.
Yeah. I've been, actually, what's funny is me and my friends have been doing a really deep dive on Rob Zombie music lately.
Oh, really?
And it's not a genre that I necessarily liked as a kid, but for some reason, Rob Zombie is starting to kind of grow on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, it's funny when I think back about the things that used to really irritate me as a kid or as a teenager growing up, and now it's like things that I really enjoy listening to. It's ridiculous. I wish I could tell my 15-year-old self, like, you're gonna sit down, you're gonna love a soundtrack to a movie called La La Land, and you're gonna listen to it every day, and it's gonna be music that you never thought that it was always like that. Oh, we're gonna put this on because we're stuck in traffic music. No, that's beautiful. It's a gorgeous soundtrack. But I'm excited. Like Bon Jovi. There's something about Bon Jovi when that comes on. On the classic rock radio that I can't turn the dial.
Well,
Bon
yeah,
Jovi.
I mean, that's my ringtone for everyone I don't know.
What is it?
It's My Life, Bon Jovi.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, that's
that is my ringtone on my phone for anybody that calls that I do not know. I have designated songs as ringtones.
So which one's for people that you do know?
It depends who you are. If it's anyone in my family, it's The Wizard of Oz, Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead.
So you actually have personalized. I thought I was the only person that did that.
Oh, no.
For my parents, I have the Imperial March
Uh-huh.
from Star Wars. For everybody else that I know, right now it's the Addams Family's theme song.
Mhm.
So it's the
If it's people that I totally just do not want to speak to because they're a pain in the butt, you got Rick Springfield's I've Done Everything for You, You've Done Nothing for Me.
All right.
Oh yeah, I have a variety.
That's perfect.
For certain special people, one special person, he always had his own ringtone. Paul McCartney, Maybe I'm Amazed.
Maybe I'm okay. We can't get in trouble for that little bit.
No, it wasn't 16 bars, so so you're okay.
Yeah, I remember we had to pay for ringtones back in the day.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that.
You still do.
I don't know. I don't know who does. I make my own ringtones. I just take the song and upload it on the phone. It's relatively simple now, not before where they used to lock the ringtones and you had to purchase them through a store, and that's the only way that you can use them. I remember that being the case. Remember when they had the advertisings on TV where you like text 000 and then you text the code 52 and then you'd get like
you could get a ringtone or
Crazy
access.
Frog, yeah.
Yeah. No, I have songs designated.
for the people that
Oh,
call you.
for it. Everything is designated with a song. So, and people think I am very strange for doing that.
No, well, I don't, because I 100% agree with you. I'd like to know who's calling me before I pick up the phone. I mean, if I have my phone face down every single time in case I get a message, someone can't read it. I'd flip it over. I want to know just based on the song, not just me flipping it. I'm lazy.
And of course, I have some vintage Elton John as ringtones, with, of course, one of the greatest bands ever, with Davy Johnstone, Dee Murray, Nigel Olsson. I mean, Yes, there was a time in life where I actually read the liner notes of every single album and would know who all the studio musicians and band members were.
And again, this goes to that you and I are different here. I do the exact same thing even today, especially with rap albums. They have so many people working on those albums, and some of the instrumental music for artists that do like a good job in their craft, not just have like a keyboard, guitar, or like a keyboard. Because with the keyboard, you can play every instrument now. Like
Sure.
a keyboard, you can set it to be a bass drum, and it'll be a bass drum.
Yeah, but it's not the same
It's
thing.
not. You can hear it.
It's like filmmakers saying, yeah, we can make digital look like film.
Yep.
It's not the same thing.
It's not. You take the Hateful Eight and compare it to like a Transformers, and you notice the difference between the two.
Yeah.
Which one is
digital and
which
which one is film.
Yeah. But what I go with the piano? Oh, if they have studio musicians, and then sometimes you see that like there's a band called Bad Bad Not Good, and they're a jazz instrumental band from Canada. They do a lot of rap stuff, and it's funny to see them do all that. Staying on the topic of music here.
Yes. We are staying on the topic of music.
I love it. Music is my passion. I love music. Next to radio, music is
and of course, my master's thesis in college was on the Hollywood movie musical,
which is beautiful. Which I as you were, I was excited that excuse me, that La La Land was bringing that back.
Yeah.
I remember watching Ryan Gosling do a little twirl
Yeah.
out during a lovely night, and I go, I hope this reunites the big Hollywood picture.
Hey, Ryan Gosling just draws in so much Gene Kelly into his performance.
Exactly. That's exactly what I felt the exact same way. It was so Gene Kelly that it was. I almost had a little tear roll down my. I seriously almost had a little tear roll down.
No,
my eye.
when you look at Ryan Gosling dance in La La Land, he has the athleticism that Gene Kelly brought to dance, as opposed to the long lines and elegance of a Fred Astaire. But yeah, that's one reason that's what really made Ryan Gosling's performance stand out for me. And then when he sang, it was very similar to Gene Kelly's manner of singing, with more talk sing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very low. That's how you get away when you don't know how to sing or aren't confident in singing.
But music. Yeah, and that's one thing that's great about this documentary with the guests that we have today, Hired Guns. We have had a great few music documentaries.
That's a business line.
Pop up lately. The past few years. I mean, we had 20 Feet from Stardom, went on to win an Oscar. And I mean, that really brought to light the backup the singers, not just in the studio, but on the stage. Judith Hill, Lisa Fisher, Mary Clayton, Darlene Love. A lot of people, until they saw 20 Feet from Stardom, they thought the only thing that Darlene Love was known for was being Mrs. Roger Murtaugh in the Lethal Weapon series. And then The Wrecking Crew. If you haven't seen The Wrecking Crew, I can't recommend it highly enough, because it takes us back to the days of the 50s and 60s with some of the seminal studio musicians in history. Don Randy on keyboards, Carol Kay, guitarist. And I would say Nita Strauss is probably the equivalent of Carol Kay. Hal Blaine, Tommy Tedesco, Denny Tedesco. If you want a real musical journey over the holiday weekend, stream 20 Feet from Stardom, stream The Wrecking Crew, and on 29th, go see Hired Gun in the theater. And right now, it is my extreme pleasure and thrill to introduce Fran Strine. Welcome to the show, Fran.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
I am thrilled. This is
awesome.
This is very exciting for me to have you on. I love music documentaries. I grew up on the set of American Bandstand back in Philadelphia at 46 and Market Street.
Awesome.
So music has always been a big, big part of my life, and I've known so many of the studio musicians and some of the stage hired guns over the years. So to see this documentary and what you have done to shine a light and put names to the faces and the guitar licks and the drum riffs, it's fabulous, absolutely fabulous.
Thank you.
Yeah,
we worked really hard on this one.
Looking at this, I can tell how hard you worked. Not only is this so polished from a filmmaking production standpoint, but the content Fran, how did you, and I know that, Jason Hook is also producer on this with you as you were directing and writing as well. How did you guys come up with the idea? Because as I was just mentioning, we've The Wrecking Crew, an amazing documentary that really takes us back to the studio musicians in the 50s and 60s. And, of course, 20 Feet from Stardom shines a light on the studio singers and the backup singers in performance. But, stepping now into the world of rock with guitarists and drummers, you just knocked it out of the park here. So
Thank you so much.
Where did this idea come from? What started you on this road?
Well, look, I've done several documentaries in the past, mainly for record labels. Like I'd go in the studio with a Stained or a Nickelback or somebody like that and document the recording of their album and put together essentially a 15-minute EPK package of the making of their album, right? Mm-hmm. And I, like you, I'm a huge documentary fan, especially of music, and I absolutely love The Wrecking Crew and 20 Feet from Stardom, and I've watched them several times over, And I was on tour with Jason Hook as their videographer and photographer on the Five Finger Death Punch tour. It was a world tour. And we were in Singapore, I think, just in the back of the bus talking about, movies we love, because Jason has a deep love for documentaries as well. And I'm at an age now where I'm kind of done touring, and had recently moved to the Bay Area and fell in love with it, and I want to spend more time here. So I was like, you know what, I need to focus in on a new project that I'd like to do. And Jason's like, well, what do you want to do? Because maybe I'll be a part of it. And come to find out, Jason was a hired gun in the past. He's a permanent member of Five Finger, but he had toured with Alice Cooper and Hilary Duff and Vince Neil and all these other artists.
Let's not forget
what a cool concept.
Let's not forget Mandy Moore.
Mandy Moore as well, yeah. I just thought that was a cool subject. I'm like, well, he tried to pitch me on an idea of the decline of music sales, which is interesting, but. I love storytelling. I love to go to the movies, believe it or not. And I'm 6'2", 230 pounds, but I love going to the movies and crying and laughing and cheering. So I wanted to make a film that would encompass all that and be compelling, And, the first person we reached out to was Liberty DeVitto, who was Billy Joel's drummer. I'd heard his story from a mutual friend of mine. I was like, well, that's the kind of story I want to tell. Something with guts and glory and just pull the curtain back and, take it a step further than, behind the music bit even. Mm-hmm. And I think we accomplished it, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And, Liberty's story is one of the anchors. It's really one of the anchors. And you've got four primary anchors within the doc. You've got Liberty DeVitto. You've got Jason, who's still on a high. With his current band. Liberty, he's at the end of the road, and what he's doing now at this stage of his career with Little Kids Rock in the schools, I think is fabulous. Then we've got a different take from Rudy Sarzo. Very philosophical, very pragmatic on his approach.
With Rudy, it was interesting with Rudy. He was brought in early to interview, and we went and interviewed him. I knew his story, right? Mm-hmm. And he kind of glossed over the Randy Rhoads death scene. I don't think he was ready to talk about it. And as we were developing some of these stories, I was like, people are going to fall in love with this guy because he's just such a, like you said, a pragmatic, happy, positive. Mm-hmm. Everything works in his favor because he's just such a nice guy.
Yeah.
But the thing that we glossed over was why he kept getting these gigs. Because had that tragedy never happened, he would probably still be playing with Ozzy, which would have been fine, but he would never gotten his own band, the Quiet Riot, or leapfrogging the Whitesnake at their height. Mm-hmm. So I called him. I'm like, look, I don't want to be, prying too much, but I feel like we left a huge part of your story out of the interview, which was the Randy Rhoads tragedy. And I don't know if you were ready to talk about it, so I don't want to press you, but would you mind us coming back over, maybe talking about it? And I got to tell you, man, when we did, he went there. You can see it on his face in
Oh.
the interview. It's the only thing we really talked about there. And I got to tell you, myself and our crew that were there filming were weeping like little babies on the corner after we were done, including Rudy. I mean, it was a really touching moment, and I'm so, you know, I don't want to say proud of that moment, but the fact that he trusted us with that story and to put it together the way we did was everything to me.
Well,
it really elevated that scene.
You know, and out of that comes I think one of the key moments, key statements in the documentary when Rudy actually says, because of that, because life can turn on a dime. One day you're here,
Yeah.
one day you're not. You know, you have to quote unquote play like there's no tomorrow. When you
Right.
pick, when you
That's
pick
what
up,
all these guys.
yeah, when you pick up that instrument, you've got to play like there's no tomorrow. And
Yeah.
you see it in their faces, you hear it in their voices all through this documentary. But you know, a linchpin here that really ties everything together is someone who is now, in my estimation, one of the elder statesmen of rock, and that's Alice Cooper.
Right.
I mean,
How many guys has that guy gone through in his career? It's 125 musicians, I think. And they all leave with this blessing. Like, there's nobody can say a bad word about Alice
No.
Cooper. He either elevates them out of his band into a Kiss or a Five Finger or a Winger or whoever, but they all leave on good terms. They have nothing but good things to say about the guy. And it was the only time I was starstruck. I've been doing this for 20 years. I grew up on Alice Cooper. I love it to death. When 18 came out, that was it for me. You know, I was a little kid. And to finally meet him and interview him, I was so nervous. And when he walked through the door of the hotel, my nerves went away. I mean, he was just so down to earth. You know, probably knew I was scared to death. You know what I mean? He put me at ease.
You know,
it was such a thrill to talk to him.
I don't think people realize, unless you know Alice's story, and his father was a Baptist minister, and you know,
Right.
and I think a lot of those young teachings, that's his core. He can get up on stage and be as outrageous as he can, but the minute he gets off that stage, all those core elements of kindness and goodness that come from those early teachings, that's him. That's who he is. And you know, like you said, I mean, I've been following Alice since I was in junior high school back in the early 70s. I know the night of our junior prom, he was playing at the Spectrum in Philadelphia, and it was a big decision for several of us. Do we go to the prom or do we go to the Alice Cooper concert? And I've had the pleasure to meet him on several occasions over the years since then. But to listen to him talk about the industry, to talk about his philosophies about how all these hired guns should be treated, and you know where the industry has gone, beyond insightful. And if young musicians would sit and listen to this man, they can learn so much about how to navigate the industry.
Right.
You know, how did you narrow down, because this is like a who's who of rock musicians, from Jason and Liberty, Alice, you got Ray Parker Jr., Rudy, Jason Newsted, Glen Sobel, Eva Gardner, Nita Strauss, one of my faves, Nita Strauss.
Amazing, isn't she?
I was saying before, she is like the equivalent of Carol Kay in the 50s and 60s.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, look, we interviewed 55 musicians, I think. I don't think we needed to. I think I knew I had in the bag who I needed, but, you know, it's never a bad thing to pick up content if you can, and we had the luxury of being able to do that. But, you know, I'm not going to lie to you. I tried to edit the movie at first myself. I was going to take a stab at it. And that's never a good thing for a director. I think I'm starting to learn this because this is my first real big film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I said, I've done other documentaries before, but none on this spectrum or level. And I knew I had an obligation to, you know, not only the musicians, but to our investors, to whoever would pick this up as a distributor, and to myself to make the best movie that I could and leave ego outside of it. As I'm sitting there editing, it just started looking like white noise to me because I wanted to put everything in.
Yeah.
But as a filmmaker, I know you can't fall in love with 55 people and tell a good, compelling story.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to narrow it down to those few key figures in the film: the Liberty, Rudy, Jason, maybe Phil X. We try to do a parallel theme with the earlier guys, with Jay Graydon, Steve Lukather, David
Mm-hmm.
Foster, Ray Parker. Those guys grew up together. And I got to tell you, it was tough, man. But, our main editor, Gavin Fisher, just did a fantastic job piecing the stuff together. Then we brought in Tim Calandrello, who then took Gavin's finished pieces and strung them together in the way that you see in the film now. And I was so lucky to have both those guys at my disposal. And what was also important to me that a lot of people overlook is audio.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a filmmaker, the video, the visual is very important, but the audio is critical. And there were a couple of interviews that we did where I had to run the audio, and you can probably point them out in the film. But Thomas Corcoran was our audio guy, and he just killed it. And we mixed it at Skywalker Ranch. To me, I wanted the film to sound as good as it looked. It was very important to me. And the music to me is kind of in the background. I want to really be more of a storyteller, but I know that the audience would want to see and hear these great songs that these guys did, and put a melody to a face.
Well,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and that really stands out in two segments. Your end titles at the 1 hour 32-minute mark, and your 1 hour 23 mark, and I think maybe one other where you actually have all of these hired guns getting together and performing together, and it is mind-blowing, and the sound is incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, you know what? As a producer, that was the toughest challenge, was getting all those guys together, and we were fortunate. We got, I don't know if you want to call it luck or good fortune or what you want to call it, but to get all these guys together in a room is very difficult because they're all currently working musicians. But it happened to be right after the NAMM show in Anaheim, and I just happened to send out an email. So, would you guys happen to be available this weekend? And like 19 of them were. So I was like, where's the studio going to be? So I called up East West Studios, which is a world-renowned recording studio, and they're like, yeah, man, we'd love for you to come in here and shoot. So we did, and I was owed a favor by a producer, Johnny Kay, who did a lot of the Three Doors Down records and Disturbed and Stained. And we'd worked together in the past. I was like, remember that favor you owe me? Would you be able to fly in from Chicago that weekend? He's like, absolutely, man. I'll do whatever you need. I'm in. Count me in.
Oh, my God.
So, and he's a, Grammy-nominated producer. So just a plane ticket to get him there. And a lot of the cast has just been wonderful. Ray Parker Jr., a lot of people need to know about this guy. I mean, Ghostbusters was the winning lottery ticket, as he calls it, for his career. But his backstory is so crazy. Like, at 15 years old, touring the world with the Spinners and playing with Stevie Wonder on the Talking Book record, Superstitious and all that stuff he played on, and writing for Shaka Khan, and just so many cool stories. And he's just a cool guy, man. He doesn't need to do anything for me, but he's gone to like South by Southwest with me. Then we got a call to go to Australia, and the Ghostbusters 3, I guess the latest one, was about to come out, so he was hot at the time because they're still using his song.
Of course.
I was like, would you have any interest? I was like, would you want to go to Australia with me to go to the Melbourne International Film Festival? He's like, absolutely. I'm like, you're kidding. You're going to be there for 2 weeks. He's like, let's go. I'm in, 100%. So we went. We just had the best time, and he's been very supportive, as well as everybody else. Like, this week is just the press junket, and so many of the guys have just jumped on board and are really pushing the film. They're happy to be on it.
Yeah, I know that you guys had something at the London Hotel, I think. The other night, and I couldn't make it. The publicist who's handling theatrical, Cece, reached out to me, and because I was tied up with LA Film Festival, I couldn't make it. But luckily, Tim Bender with New Ocean Media, who handles all the radio stuff, Tim had hit me up over a month ago to get you on the show today. and
Oh, cool.
to get you and Phil. Phil's should be calling in shortly too.
Phil's awesome.
And well, you can stay on the line with Phil.
I'd love to.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
But
He's
no,
great.
Tim was so hot on this over a month ago. He booked you guys on the show. He goes, Deb, you're going to love it. You're going to love the doc. And I started laughing when Cece then reached out to me, and I said, you're late to the party. Tim already got hold of me first.
That's funny.
Uh-oh. And
Yeah, no, everybody's done.
I see that Brian has connected a new caller here. Phil X,
Yeah.
is that you?
It is.
Oh, my God. Phil, welcome to Behind the Lens. Your director, Fran, is also on the line.
Get
What's
out.
up, Phil?
What's happening, Fran?
Man, it's there in beautiful Northern California, taking it all in.
Nice. Yeah, you look good.
Where are you today, Phil? Because I know you've been on tour.
I'm in Los Angeles.
And that's a good place to be today. It's only going to be, 90 degrees?
It's been hot, man.
I know. Trust me. But I sit in my house, and it's like all the fans are blowing on me. But I have to say, Phil, I am so thrilled to have you on the show.
I'm glad to be here.
A huge fan of your work in general. But your story that you impart that comes out in Hired Guns is fascinating, and your attitude is one that I really like, and I'm so glad that Fran included you talking about it, how you came to Bon Jovi and how you approach and how you were approaching work. It's like you get hired for one tour, that's it. If they call you back, they call you back. They called you back,
right.
And finally it wasn't until, I guess, after this was pretty much in the can, you finally it was announced you were now the lead guitarist for Bon Jovi.
Yeah, that's it still freaks me out when I go to a show and I see my face on a T-shirt.
Well, now what freaks you out more, seeing your face on a Bon Jovi T-shirt or seeing your face on a T-shirt for your own group?
You know what? It's such a different animal. Because when you're at a show and you see your face on a Bon Jovi T-shirt, it takes you back to when you bought your own ticket to go see them on a New Jersey tour in Toronto, Canada, when I was a kid. So that's so surreal. It's unexplainable in most cases. but when I go somewhere and I see my band T-shirt on somebody, and it's like, it's because we're more of an underground entity, so it's seeing that is even more kind of, wow, that's cool.
So how did Jason convince you to get involved with Hired Gun?
It didn't take a lot of convincing at all. It was like, hey, you want to do this? Sure. When? Name the time and place. And it's funny when you hear something like that going down, you're always suspect until you get a call from the director, and then you're finally in front of the camera doing the interview, and then you're like, oh, this is a real deal, and they got a sound guy and a light guy, and this is for real. And then the conversation that I had with Fran was like one of the most. It wasn't even really an interview. I felt like, we could have been drinking coffee at a Coffee Bean or something. And it came off to me like very professional, but also very personal. And it's exactly what I would want to expect as an artist,
Mm-hmm. Now, is that your typical style, Fran? When you're doing doing interviews?
Yeah, my background is of a concert, touring photographer, videographer, and being in a studio environment as well. Like I've done probably 30 making of DVDs with various artists. So, I know the studio etiquette, when to speak up, when not to, just to be a fly on the wall. But, when I'm conducting these interviews, I know most of these artists because I've worked for them for years, so it is a conversation. And I feel like you get more out of that than staring at a sheet of paper and just asking the same question they've probably heard 1,000 times. So I definitely try to keep it relaxed and natural like that.
Well, I'm
waiting to see the movie of Fran's face during the interview. Because he literally responds like you're having a conversation. Like you say something that might be a little bit like, kind of like get you on your toes, and he's got that face like, what? No way, that's crazy. And you're like, that's the movie I'm waiting for.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, when you're sitting there telling me you're playing with like Stuart Copeland, all the stuff I didn't even know that I couldn't even research and find, it was like, wow, that's pretty big, man. That's huge.
Yeah, that actually was.
All these other cool things.
And you know what's funny? As an amazing experience that was, that's the one I always forget. It's like, man, I did 5 shows in Italy with Stuart Copeland. How do you forget that?
Oh my God.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, and something that I'm disappointed that did not come up in your interview segments within Hired Gun is you didn't talk about your dad and playing on the bouzouki.
Yeah, that's kind of a touchy issue with me. It's sometimes it gets brought up, sometimes it doesn't, and I won't bring it up. I mean, I love the whole thing with the bouzouki, and my dad was even when I was young, the moments of being a child and seeing your dad walk into a party with a bouzouki and start playing, the music was secondary.
Mm-hmm.
It was what he did to that room. Like, he knew like 500 old political songs from the 40s. And he could make people laugh and he could make people cry. And I was astounded by the entertainment factor.
Mm-hmm.
And hearing a melody, like I didn't even know what he was singing lyrically, but I would hear a melody and the melody made me sad.
Wow.
Or the melody would make me happy. And that was my introduction to, this is a minor thing, so that makes you sad, and this is a major thing that makes you happy. That was the whole, as a child, just growing up with that, it was an incredible thing to segue into picking up the guitar and playing.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you learn to play on the bouzouki at all? Because that's just pretty much all picking, is it not?
The picking is insane. Like when I was 11, my dad wanted me to take bouzouki lessons, so I didn't really enjoy it because your dad wants you to do it. It was like hockey too. I sucked at hockey, but my dad wanted me to play hockey. I was like, come on. But when I was 17 and thinking, I need something as a guitar player, I need something that will take me to another level. And then I chose to take bouzouki lessons on my own initiative, and that's when, because I wanted to do it and because I tagged it like this is going to take me to another domain as a player, and it did. It took my picking to this crazy, articulate, punctuated, unheard of kind of picking that at the time guys were like, what the heck happened? I'm like, I took bouzouki lessons. So it's one of those things where everybody's in high school, everybody's at different high schools, and you have peers, and it launched me way above my peers when I started taking bouzouki lessons. Everybody was like, what the heck did this guy just do?
Well, I'm curious, do you think, because you have been described by more than one music critic out there as a bare bones player. You're not stuck to a pedal like so many guitarists are. I think probably the one that comes to mind that you almost always see with a pedal is the edge.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, do you think that those picking skills are what allow you to be bare bones and be off a pedal and actually be embracing the stage and embracing the instrument?
First of all, I just got to say that I'm completely blown away that you brought up the use of pedals. And secondly, to answer your question, I don't know if it's so much the picking thing. I mean, it's a bunch of things. Like, I love the idea of getting everything I can out of the instrument without the help of effects.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it is the picking, and sometimes it's like pulling the strings off the neck over each other, and sometimes it's pushing the lower strings from behind the nut, pushing them down to get different pitches and stuff like that, or using a tuning peg instead of a whammy bar. Stuff like I think it's a number of things that develop over years of. It's not stuff that you practice. It's just stuff that you do on stage, and you're inspired by a moment to, okay, what can I do right now? What would make this moment over the top? And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. So that's why, when you've been doing it for 30 years, you kind of get that. Oh, that worked, and again and again and again. So you keep that in your toolbox.
Well, something that I noticed, it was a common thread, Fran, amongst a lot of the interview subjects, a lot of our hired guns, was people that have gone on to have their own bands or had their own bands, but it's the dynamic that happens within a group. And I think, Phil, you're a perfect example of this. The difference in the dynamic between you when you play with Bon Jovi as a supporting player and you when you play with the Drills as a front man. And I think both of you really brought that out beautifully within the documentary. And it is something that's very noticeable.
Thank you.
Right. Well, you know what? The hang is what they call it, is almost as important as your skill level of playing. That includes even like crew guys, the guitar tech and everybody else, because you're touring for so long that any bad egg is just sours the whole deal. And a lot of these guys did jump to do their own thing, like
relationships.
Steve
are
Lukather
so
from Toto, right?
Yeah, totally. Like relationships are so important. Like when you walk into a situation like you're filling in for the guy in a band, you want to be best friends with the crew. You don't want to walk in and have everybody hate you. And I've never been in a situation, I think, where that happened, but I've seen it happen. So you learn from other people's mistakes. I walked in, and it was funny because Takumi at the time, he was the tech. He's such an amazing, this guy is so good that if he's not working, he doesn't want to be working. But he became we're still bros, we're still buddies, and we communicate. And it was one of those things when I stepped in, and I remember people kept telling him, hey, wish Phil luck tonight. And he would just be like, I keep telling you, he doesn't need it. He's got it down, that kind of thing. So to have someone like that in your corner always and supportive and telling you, hey, that was really great what you did there, and maybe not so much on that one, and it's nice to have a guide like that. But it's stepping in with the band, and then you're on the jet with the band, and then you're not. You're in a hotel, and then there's fans in the lobby. And I've always just been, and I got this from my dad as well. He was always the same person to whoever he met.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you like doing meet and greets with fans, Phil?
I do. I think. And again, this goes back to being green on the streets of L.A. and my band playing in front of the Viper Room and standing outside and talking to people in the line.
Mm-hmm.
And I dig that. And I think people, they ask good questions, and it makes you connect on another level. And then when they, hey, what were you thinking when you wrote that song? Like stuff like that comes up, and then you're like, well. What did you think when I said that? Because I always think writing lyrics is interpretive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to make everything black and white. I like it to sit, maybe provoke a thought, or something like, give you an image. And sometimes it presents something to somebody, to each listener in a different way. And I love that. And how are you going to find that out unless you talk to these people?
Mm-hmm. Well, and something that you also do, Phil, is you've got your website, philx.tv. Guitar lesson.
Which is not very happening right now.
Well, you've been a little busy. You've been a little busy.
I've been a little busy.
But on there, it's like your performance videos, merchandise, guitar lessons with Phil via Skype. Come on, that's
yeah,
pretty
it's been
cool.
a while since I did that.
Yeah, but still.
Well, the other thing is too is when you get into a certain situation, and people are like, hey, we're doing a fundraiser for for this or that or cancer or St. Jude's Hospital, and I've been in situations where I could donate a guitar, or and then you run out of guitars to donate, and it's like, well, hey, can I donate a lesson?
Mm-hmm.
And then before you know it, people are paying. I think there was a situation where it was a combo. I donated a lesson, and 606 Studio, which is Foo Fighters Studio up in Northridge, they donated the studio. So it was a Phil X lesson at Foo Fighters Studio, and I believe the highest bid was like $8,000 or something.
Wow. Now, Fran,
so
are
when
you?
something like that goes down, how can you? It's hard to be okay with, selling one for $100 on Skype.
Well, and Fran, this should be giving you an idea of how you can finance, a future music documentary.
Right.
Right.
So Phil X, you want to do a Kickstarter and get this next project rolling, or what?
Right.
Like, how many guitar lessons you gonna give me?
You get them for free, buddy.
Well, no, sell them to the highest bidder to raise money for the project.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah, and Phil, you've done something that a lot of I don't think a lot of hired guns or even other musicians have done, but you actually entered into endorsement deals to expand your name.
Well, I do think a lot of people do that. I do. Even early on, I was. People come up to you and they go, "Hey, we want to give you guitars because we love what you do and we'd love you to represent us." And I mean, for me, I always felt like, yeah, but I really gotta like the guitar and I really gotta do this. And then when I finally got together with Framus, they were like, "Hey, what do you want?" I want the guitar of my dreams. I want the neck to be like this. I want the body to be like that. I like this weight. There's a guy that I make pickups with in North Hollywood, and I just want it to be, an instrument that I could be very proud of and stand behind. And that's what happened. It became an amazing thing, and it comes down to this: you have your dream guitar. I have my dream amp with Friedman amplification. I have if somebody walks up to me and says, your sound is incredible, I'd be like, well, dude, the guitar was made for me, the amp was made for me. If my sound wasn't incredible, I'd be an idiot.
Now, so I have to ask you, during the one session number within the documentary, just what the doctor ordered, were you playing your Framus and using your Friedman?
Yes.
What a silly question. Of course you were.
Of course I was. And you know what? And it's not like, I'm going to be in a documentary. It's going to be visual. I have to use this. It's like, this is the guitar of choice. This is the amp of choice. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is think of the time where the documentary started, and then the part where all the cast members were jamming at East West Studios. I had switched guitar companies. When I did the interview, I was with Yamaha, and we actually did the interview at Yamaha in Burbank.
Wow.
So,
I remember
somewhere along the lines, I didn't have a falling out. I'm still close with the guys at Yamaha, but I was presented with a better opportunity with Framus. So, and then that happened during the entire making of.
So how long was this making of, Fran?
The interview process was about 1.5 years, almost 2 years, because like I said, a lot of these guys are working musicians still, whether it be in the studio or touring. So we had to work around their schedule, and I wanted to compile as much interview footage as I could get to make it, I didn't want there to be one lagging second in the entire film. So I felt it was important to grab what I could. There were certain people I really wanted to get that we just didn't have time to get, because at some point you really got to get, to the editing portion of the film. But I'd say right now, Phil, what is about 3 years in?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it took about 9. Yeah, it took a couple of weeks to mix it over at Skywalker. And then, and we literally had we been late one day mixing, we would not have been able to do our world premiere at South by Southwest. It was that close.
Wow. That's really cutting it close.
That was really tight. But the other thing, too, about being a part of this is the friendships that have been created. Like, obviously, I know Jason. I know a bunch of the guys. I've recorded with them. But then you meet a monster like DeVitto, and now his number is in your phone and your friends, and you text occasionally. It's like, hey, I'm going to be in New York in August. Let's grab a pizza. It's such an incredible thing just to be involved.
Now, I know Fran felt like a kid in a candy store with all of you and doing this doc. Did you feel like a kid in a candy store?
He seriously had the hardest job. How do you omit some of the footage that you got because you want to keep it under a certain time length, which is smart, but that's got to be the hardest job on the planet.
So I want to ask.
There's stuff living in those hard drives that, my God, we could make. I tell you what, we could make 3 hired gun movies equally as good as the one that is currently out there right now.
Okay, so what's stopping you? I'll watch them. Trust me, I'll buy them. I'll watch them.
Right. Well, it's very, very expensive to make a movie like this. The one thing that I didn't really think about was when I'm working for a record label, they give me the songs. I don't have to worry about licensing anything. All I got to do is show up, interview the guys. The promotions department at the record label sends me all the elements and materials I need. I don't worry about archival footage or anything. So when I'm starting to learn about all this, I'm like, oh, you mean you have to license all these songs? And there's 2 parts of it. There's a publishing part and a master. And they want how much money? So I was just like, oh, my God, I'll never be able to make this movie, But thankfully, I did my homework, and I found a lady named Julie Glaze Houlihan, who wound up being our music supervisor. And for any filmmakers out there, look her up if you've got a tight budget. And we did a Favored Nations deal. And some of the songs that she cleared, there's some giants in there. And I got to thank Phil X, man, and Bon Jovi, because we were dying to put this Bon Jovi scene in the movie. And she was like, Bon Jovi's tight, man. He's probably not going to ever let you license his song. And Phil reached out to John Bon Jovi, and he gave us our blessing, gave us a song at a great rate, and it's in the movie, thank God,
Oh.
So, it was. I was just thrilled to death to know that he, and the same thing with Pink. She had to authorize it as well. She had to look at the scene. And I think the only person that really turned us down was John Cougar, and he's notorious for that. And, of course, Billy Joel was kind of sour because, a lot of people ask me, why isn't Billy Joel interviewed in the movie? Well, and it's all archival from Billy.
Right.
In the film. But I wanted to be neutral. So I reached out to his people, and oddly enough, he was interested. He's like, I'm interested. I would like to see the transcripts, and if you have any scenes cut. So I was like, okay, no problem. And I had no problem showing him. There's some pretty rough material in there on him.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent it to him, and about 3 days later, I got the definitive no. Like, no.
And
I don't want any part of this. As a matter of fact, take it out,
It doesn't surprise me. In all honesty, it does not surprise me.
Right.
Well,
I don't know anything
that's
about
one of the curtains that the people, the viewer, get to look behind.
Yes.
Interviews I got from the folks.
No, you're right. You're right, Phil. Yeah, that is. It's pulling back the curtain that the audience gets to see. It's something, everybody has a public perception of performers, and this.
Well, of course, because we're until this movie, and it's people have their ideas of, whether it's income or, how people get along and stuff like that. And, it's like any relationship that goes sour. But there's a lot of people walk out of this film like you feel, okay, I laughed, I cried, and I got pissed.
Yeah.
You know, and it's
So that means I did my job right.
emotions
That
after seeing
was
that
my
movie.
whole thing going into making this movie, is to make an emotionally charged piece of film that would move people.
And
the music, I always say, is kind of in the background. It's about the storytelling, because I know when I go, like I just saw a movie last week. I go to the movies 2 or 3 times a week, literally. And what was the movie? Megan. So it's about the girl.
Oh, Megan Levy.
That has a dog.
Megan Levy.
I was weeping in the corner in a fetal position, boo-hooing for an hour and a half. Like, I love that, though. You know what I mean? It's like, I want to feel the emotion, man. You know?
Well, after
a piece of celluloid looking.
You know, after you did Battlefield of the Mind, I'm not surprised to hear you say that, though.
Right. Well, that touched me a different way. You know, I hate war and everything to do with that. I'm a huge liberal, you know, from the South, but, you know, moved to the Bay Area. And when I first moved here, I was stunned by the amount of homelessness in the city. So I would strike up a conversation with these kids. I mean, these are 25, 26, you know, up to 35 years old. And the one common theme they had, they were all arriving back from these 2 wars and were scarred, you know. And they lost their relationships, their jobs, their families due to PTSD.
Yeah.
And, you know, I didn't need any trickery with music scores or anything like that to bring the tears out. It's just these guys' stories and what they've gone through. It's just heart-wrenching.
Well, and you didn't need any trickery with a hired gun, because, as you both said, you know, you laugh, you cry, you get pissed, but you love every minute that you're watching this documentary. It's like you can't wait.
Well, there's a couple of scenes in there, like when Russell, I don't want to give too much of it away, but Russell Javers from Billy Joel's band talks about a very moving, sad part of the industry, which I don't know, Phil, do you ever feel it when you come back off a giant tour like a Bon Jovi or anything like that? I know you fly in jets now, but back in the days on tour bus, I remember coming home off, 18 months on the road, and there's not the hum of the engine, the 16 semi-trucks, the crowd every night.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
And you're waking up
in a I feel like if
quiet
I'm going to be away, like having small children now.
Where's my day sheet to tell me what to do today? You know?
Right. It's one of those, and for me, it's like I'm very thankful that when I decided to become a hired gun again and be in a situation like Bon Jovi, they don't disappear for a really long period of time. It would be like 3 weeks on and a week off is generally how they work. And it's not, and when people come, and you feel kind of fortunate in a situation where, somebody comes up and, hey, so what's the bus like? I'm like, bus? I haven't seen a bus.
Yeah.
Because we're flying with the band, and we're flying from gig to gig, and you have a day off when, the crew is still, on a 12-hour bus ride.
Mm-hmm.
But it's think about that situation where you're at the height of any kind of, rock and roll status, where, you got to walk on and deliver an amazing set in front of 20,000 people every night, or 50,000 people, or wherever you are. And, you need to not be on a bus for 12 hours. You need to get your rest. You need to go to the gym. You need to, whatever you need to do to make that happen,
Mm-hmm. One thing, because we're almost out of time, but I want to ask both of you. My favorite set piece in the doc is the Just What the Doctor Ordered. I'm curious, did you guys rehearse that at all? Because it is perfectly shot from a film standpoint. The set looks amazing with little twinkle lights in the background, but watching each of you, from Fish to you, Phil, to Ava, to Ed, to Liberty and Kenny, watching you perform, with each one of you really getting to showcase your skills, did you do a lot of rehearsal for that, or did you all just go at it and just hit it?
I'm going to let Fran take that part, and then I have my 30 seconds.
Yeah. So, look, I got all these guys together after the NAMM show, like I said earlier, and we did one day of rehearsal the day before at I don't know, what are those backline places are, Philly, you'd know, the Third Encore or something like that. And then we moved everything into East West Studios, which was a huge thrill for me to be able to film this and capture the audio there as well. But and what was even funnier, I have to mention this. If I don't, I'll kill myself. There's an older lady, and her name is Corky Hale, and she's a pianist and harpist. And she's played with Liberace, Tony Bennett, Frank Sinatra, even dated him for a while. And her husband was one of Elvis's songwriters, and he wrote Stand By Me, right? Mm-hmm. So it's incredible, the history that this woman talks about. But, and then there's Derek St. Holmes, and this lady is a huge liberal. Like, she builds and funds Planned Parenthoods all over the country with her own money, and, like, huge Bernie Sanders, the whole deal, like as far left as you can get and old and cranky. And then you have Derek St. Holmes, and because his name is attached to Ted Nugent, who's the polar opposite, right-wing hunter, wants to kill Obama, the whole deal. And she's introducing herself, and people are introducing themselves to her in the green room. And she's like, well, who do you play for? And Derek St. Holmes was like, I sing for Ted Nugent. I don't know, Phil, if you were in there or not, but she burst a blood vessel, and she had Derek run out into the hallway, like, fearing for his life. She went crazy on him. So that was one to stand. I wish we would have had that on film. It was so hysterical. You had to be there.
Oh, come on. You wouldn't have put that in there.
Oh, my God. It was so, but you know what?
See, my experience with what the doctor ordered was I learned that song when I was 11. Like, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Derek sounds like he did in the 70s. He sounds maybe like, if so not good. Better. So, and the one thing that's magical about music is it makes you time travel, and that's what happened to me. I was playing just what the doctor ordered, and when Derek started singing, I was in my dad's basement dropping the needle on Double F Gonzo, and I was 11. And people were looking at me after, like, hey, you all right? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm 11. It was just an incredible moment.
Guys, we are actually all out of time today. I wish we could talk for another hour. You guys are amazing. I can't thank you enough for joining us today. Phil X, Fran Strine, this Thursday night.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say this Thursday night. Yeah, go ahead.
Fathom Events. That's it. 300 theaters across the country. Get your tickets. This is a documentary. This is one of my must-sees for the entire year, is Hired Gun.
Amazing.
Guys, thank you. I hope that you guys will come back on the show again.
Anytime.
That would be great. All right, have a great day, guys, and we will talk to you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that's it for Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens.